Boys, make sure you come home right after school.
Why?
We're having a family conference.
Families. Most of us have them. Lots of us treasure them. Some of us grow to tolerate them. As young children, we learn by observing our parents. We subconsciously imitate their behaviour and shape our worldview under heavy influence of theirs. In many ways, we want to believe they are eternal and infallible. As we grow older, the illusion crumbles. And as we begin to see them for the imperfect humans they truly are, we realise we must make our own way in the world. But not without some inevitable resistance.
Leave me alone.
Noah Baumbach knows this as well as any contemporary filmmaker. His work, which is often deeply personal, reflects the true messiness of families. Adults behave like adolescents, while children are often obliged to behave prematurely like adults. And although his films are never directly autobiographical, they often feature one common family dynamic.
Divorce.
It's in 2005's The Squid and the Whale that Baumbach is at his truest, scathing in his assessment of families and the sacred institution of marriage.
You married?
No.
The whole thing's very complicated.
In Baumbach's eyes, marriage is a lot like tennis. The opening scene is a thinly veiled metaphor for the impending rift that will soon deepen between two factions of the Berkman family.
Mom and me versus you and Dad.
It symbolises the competitive nature of any familial relationship, the binary divisions between key players, and the inevitable passive-aggressive attempts to one-up your significant other.
If you can, try and hit it at your mother's backhand. It's pretty weak.
Got it.
The film depicts the collapse of a marriage as seen through the eyes of the children, 16-year-old Walt and 12-year-old Frank.
Mom and I are going... We're going to separate.
The sides the two children take, Walt with his father and Frank, his mother, are more a coping mechanism to avoid dealing with their true feelings than a genuine sense of belonging or rejection. Within this characterization, Baumbach explores how drawing our influences from our flawed parents can lead to a dysfunctional dependence that, unless broken out of, will cause us to follow the exact same path as them.
Maybe you should sleep with her once. See if you like it. Doesn't mean you can't see other women too.
As parents, Joan and Bernard are less than perfect. Joan, an oversharing, inappropriate and philandering mother, spends more time talking about her sex life than her family life.
I had had an affair with a man before your father. He worked at the college bookstore. We used to make love in the stockroom.
Mom, I don't want to hear about your affairs, please.
And Bernard, a pompous, narcissistic father who constantly projects his domineering opinions onto his family.
We're reading A Tale of Two Cities in English. Is that any good?
It's minor Dickens.
It's the relationship between these divisive character traits and the personalities of the sons which makes Baumbach's film ring true. As Carl Jung once said, the greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of its parents. Watching The Squid and the Whale, the viewer is made to wonder, is Walt's blind idolization of his father, in fact, the very thing that's holding him back?
Isn't that kind of a stock question for a shrink?
Yes. That's more or less how this works.
In Walt's eyes, Bernard can do no wrong. He imitates him in all walks of life.
Have you read The Side of Paradise?
No, but it's Minor Fitzgerald.
And regurgitates his opinions on things like books, while clearly never having formed his own.
Well, what do you think is happening at the end with the sister?
Oh, yeah, I think she's, I mean, no, it's ambiguous, really.
Yeah. I mean, it's gross when he turns into the bug, but I love how matter-of-fact everything is.
Yeah, it's very Kafkaesque.
Because it's written by Franz Kafka.
It's no coincidence that Franz Kafka's The Metamorphosis is a recurring motif in the film. In many ways, Bernard's failing career is similar to Gregor Samsa's transformation into a grotesque bug. Isolated from his family and struggling to communicate effectively as a result of his overemphasis on work and perfectionism, he finds himself unable to continue in his chosen career and struggles to provide for his children.
Is this enough?
Get a small one.
But as in The Metamorphosis, with a cataclysmic change in the family dynamic comes an opportunity for those in the shadow of the overpowering patriarch to step into the light and develop an independence they never before knew.
Ms. Berkman, I read your story in The New Yorker. I thought it was quite moving.
Thanks.
Throughout The Squid and the Whale, Baumbach weaves an elaborate web that perfectly encapsulates complex family relationships.
That's all right, my brother.
And in Frank, he examines the other end of the dependency spectrum, with a reaction to his parents' behaviour that strays into the realm of what we'll call dysfunctional independence.
What were you doing?
I was going to Mom's.
As his parents separate, Frank displays a number of societally inappropriate behaviours, like a prepubescent Travis Bickle.
You talking to me?
He resorts to drinking alcohol. He relieves himself around school and he swears. A lot.
Suck my dick ass, man.
What's more, he rejects everything his literati father wants him to be.
No, you're interested in books and things. You liked The Wild Child when we saw it.
Lots of people like that movie. No, I'm a Philistine.
Instead, in a move Oedipus would be proud of, Frank models himself on the man his mother is having an affair with.
I want to be a tennis pro like Ivan.
And as Frank gets left increasingly further behind by his parents,
Bernard left him behind for 3 days last week.
his behaviour becomes more erratic, as a desperate cry for help that can be answered by one person,
Dad,
and
this is
one
wrong.
person only.
I think Bernard has to do it.
Baumbach perfectly captures the way highly educated parents can project their own narcissism and professional anxieties onto their children. Already fixed within their own internalised patterns, both Bernard and Joan are quick to point out the imperfections of others, but much slower to turn the mirror towards themselves.
I think it has very little to do with me.
Mother shit, fucker!
In this depiction, the film suggests that the collateral damage of two adults refusing to be conscious of their own fallibility extends far beyond themselves.
What about the cat? Shit. The cat.
We didn't discuss the cat.
Both Walt and Frank internalise their parents' problems. Throughout the film, the biggest laughs come at the expense of someone else's agony. Perhaps a wry acknowledgement of the inherent humour within our own failures. But the biggest truth that comes through in Baumbach's writing is the suggestion that children may not be so messed up by their parents that they are beyond hope. It's very telling that Bernard's book is called Underwater. Thematically, Baumbach is constantly suggesting that submerged feelings and internalised patterns of behaviour are both unavoidable and something we must face. When Walt's encouraged to look beneath the surface of his superficial protective barrier,
He wants you to see a therapist.
he's finally able to assimilate the truth of who his father really is.
Did your dad live at home back then?
Yeah, why?
You didn't mention him. Where was he during all of this?
He was.
And as he stands outside the window of a Chinese restaurant, hiding behind a menu, looking in on the ideal family life he'll never have, Walt is left with no choice but to accept the one he was born into. By the end of the film, he untangles himself from his dad and runs towards the scariest thing in his past. By constantly depicting Bernard and Joan as the titular squid and whale, intrinsically intertwined in each other's passive-aggressive grasps, Baumbach suggests that by becoming aware of our parents' downfalls, we can see them less as monsters and more as the foolish humans they really are. Leaving us with a glimmer of hope that growing up might just be the best form of revenge.